peanuts, man, peanuts. Hey, 35 3 for a buck here. How about any peanuts?
I remember when we were kids, I was fascinated by vendors. My father would be driving through a viaduct. We'd always yell out of our windows, "Hey, hot dogs, hey, Pop." Back when I started, the next day, I couldn't walk. My leg muscles aren't used to bending like that. This is not a normal job. So the following year, I started spring training for myself. I would walk up and down stairs in February and March. I was in the competition with my friends to outsell them. As long as I beat them, that's what counted.
Lloyd would actually go, and at the end of the day, would write down how many loads I did, how many loads Joe did, how many loads Lloyd did, how many loads Sue did.
It got pretty competitive, but on the other hand, a lot of these vendors were really, really good friends. They were a really close-knit community.
We all became one big family. A lot of zany things would happen, and it made us laugh.
I wanted to make money, but watching the game was, if I couldn't follow the game, there's no point in it.
He was probably the biggest Sox fan that I've ever known to this very day. And so if the Sox were losing and the Cubs were winning, we'd be in the vendor's room. He would take his strap and he'd start horsewhipping a table, and just to let it out of him.
The excitement of Sox Park, it was just like crazy. We'd sell a lot of beer and people would start fights, and we could sell 35 loads of beer. Nowadays, the guys are lucky if they sell 5 or 6 loads. Drinking was like insane, and people would have, like 10, 15 beers. There was like fights every Friday night.
That was the atmosphere of Sox Park. It stunk like beer, like stale beer. And there were cigarettes, there were fist fights, and it was kind of like meant for like working people. Like the food was cheap, the beer was cheap, the tickets were cheap. It was accessible and affordable for people. Yeah, none of us want to be involved in a fight in the stands. But the fact of the matter was, this is where people got to let loose.
I remember there was one Friday night when people were picking up like the mustard thing for the hot dogs. We were throwing them, and mustard was going everywhere. I mean, it looked like the World Wrestling Federation.
I saw one guy that was so drunk, and his friends, they had one guy was grabbing him by the arms, the other guy grabbed him by the legs. They were swinging him like a hammock, and they went 1, 2, 3, and they tossed him into the trough where you used to have to go to, pee in the trough.
We used to be able to sell beer after the game. First we'd go by the washroom, where the guys, every other guys would go to the washroom, and we would try to sell them beer after they came out of the washroom on the way to the parking lot. Crazy incidents like Disco Demolition Night came up, take your life in your hand, selling beer to that crowd.
Back in the 70s, in 78, disco just took over. The whole idea, like, come to the White Sox game and blow up a record. For a 14-year-old, that is just like irresistible.
To bring a disco record, you get in for 98 cents. So me and my friends went to it. It was a doubleheader against Detroit. So there was a haze all around. You could smell marijuana everywhere. So you felt like you were at a concert, not really at a ball game.
Now it gets to be between games. And Steve Dowell's doing his thing. And this just was, he started blowing up the albums. People went crazy. And they went on the field, and I went on the field too. I went out there, and I remember actually being out near second base, selling beer. And then people were nuts though, and you saw fires being started and just people going crazy. But it dawned on me, I'm sitting there, I got cash. What's to stop 5 or 6 or 7 guys knocking me down and taking my beers from me?
It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, people were whipping. I remember just seeing these records, the people were whipping them like Frisbees. They're flying around. Some people got hit in the face, got a gash in their face from a broken record, climbing down from the upper deck on the foul pole. I was one of the few people there that was really, PO'd that the Sox had to forfeit game 2 because they weren't good enough. They couldn't afford to lose the game by forfeit.
I thought, I'm going to wait this out. So I don't care if I'm not going to sell any more beer. I'm really worried about my life. I went back into the seats. I went back to the commissary and waited it out. And of course, ultimately we found out that the game was going to be canceled. I lived to vend another day.
The vending aspect is our main goal and objective throughout the entire day here at White Sox Park, with Mark Reiner being the film man and cameraman. Right, Mark?
I knew we had something special You saw the interview with Johnny Squares, for example. Johnny, may rest in peace, was the sweetest guy, but a little mentally challenged. This is all he could do to make a living. I mean, the man had really no education of any kind.
But I heard he may have to work at Great America. How about you? I'd like to work there too.
It gave people like a Johnny Squares a way to make a buck. They were very zany. You had, the Chicago accent. I sold tree loads, T-R-E-E, tree loads, 3 loads.
48 cases. Yeah, you did the all-time record. Yeah,
It was a special time. I realized that it wouldn't last forever, at least with this particular crop of people.
Give me a bag of peanuts, buddy. Yeah. Peanuts. Get something. Arrest this guy, will you? Yeah. We have it. You see this? That's vending, 1978.
Everybody that works in the ballpark is a schmuck. That's enough. Enough.